One nation survived pure chaos.
It's traveled a long way.
England 3, Mexico 2, to hand Mexico only their third ever loss at the Azteca.
The other destroyed one of the tournament favourites without flinching.
Haaland, he wants another one. He's got another one. How about that?
Norway always had that threat in transition. Norway always had that threat on goal.
England needed a moment of brilliance to keep their World Cup dream alive.
And it's Harry Kane and Bellingham again. 2 in 2 minutes.
Norway marched through the cold with the confidence of a team that fears absolutely nobody.
Some countries have bigger names, but it's not always the bigger name on the field. It's the collective as a group who works for each other and believes in something. And today you was able to see it too.
Now they're about to collide. And this is where everything changes. Because the winner won't just reach the semi-finals. They might become the favourites to win the entire World Cup. This isn't just England versus Norway. This is the match that could decide who lifts football's greatest prize. England didn't cruise into this quarter-final.
So much of this game was surrounding the narratives around it, right? Mexico's record at home and the altitude and the fans and England's last trip to the Azteca being 40 years ago at the hands of Diego Armando Maradona, and you know that goal. All of the talk was about anything but the football. And yet England knew going in today they had a job to do. They couldn't worry about what the altitude was.
They survived it. Down at the Azteca, Thomas Tuchel's side went 3-2 with Mexico in a game that turned into a street fight.
In the Azteca Stadium with maybe the loudest stadium we've heard in the World Cup, maybe the loudest stadium we've heard in a lot of sporting events ever. And they're playing against the run of play. They had to do this. They had no option. You cannot go toe-to-toe with Mexico, down a man in that stadium.
And they did it playing over 35 minutes with 10 men after Kwanzaa picked up a red card that nobody's arguing with.
Red card to Kwanzaa, and then England from that moment, they're playing with 10 players for the remainder of literally over 40 minutes of the game in Azteca. Hostile environment, hostile crowd.
Here's the thing though, they still won.
Everything was against them. The 10 men has been alluded to already. The atmosphere, the fans, everything you could possibly imagine on paper was against that England team. And finally they looked like lions yesterday, and I'm so proud. Doesn't matter what happens the rest of this tournament. That is a standout performance, and that's all you want.
Bellingham scored twice, arrived in the box at exactly the right moment both times.
That boy was everywhere on that field today. And his 2 goals really set the tone because Mexico came out in the Azteca, as we all knew they would, and pushed the agenda.
The kind of finishing pundits started comparing to the golden generation and finding the golden generation coming up short.
Jude Bellingham today put in one of the most heroic performances I have ever seen. That's the kind of performance that legends are made off of. Honestly, in my time of watching football, that is up there with the great England performances.
Kane stepped up for a penalty that mattered as much as any he's taken for England and buried it without blinking.
Clear penalty. Harry Kane, no doubts that he's going to miss that. 3-1 England.
Pickford, a keeper who's been picked apart all tournament, produced what more than one pundit called his best performance in an England shirt. And when the legs started going, Dan Burn and John Stones came on and just muscled through the final half hour. Header after header, cross after cross.
Resetting as he did at that final hydration break, bringing Dan Burn on, John Stones too. They both played pivotal roles. And in the end, for all the pressure that Mexico applied, there weren't that many opportunities.
So what did that game actually prove? England has players who show up when it matters.
And one thing England has with this team is they've got moments players.
Bellingham and Kane specifically. But the back line is shaky. It's been shaky all tournament, and this team still hasn't controlled a full 90 minutes. They've won moments. They haven't won a match on their own terms yet. Now, flip to Norway, because their story starts somewhere completely different. First World Cup in almost 30 years. Written off before a ball was kicked, they scrape out of a brutal group, take care of business against Ivory Coast, and walk into the Brazil match as total underdogs, with nothing to lose.
Rodney, were you surprised by the performance we saw from Norway yesterday?
I was surprised. Norway, to me,
has never been a powerhouse of football. So for me to be able to see them in this situation versus Brazil that we already covered, it's incredible. I said it a couple of weeks ago. Norway has already won the World Cup by just being here, by winning these games, by moving on to the next round. But now we're starting to see Norway really be a contender.
Then they beat Brazil 2-1. Haaland scores twice.
They're up. He's been busy since the count. Haaland scores again!
He's kind of a tower. And not only does he win the header, I mean, the speed, the strength of that header is like unbelievable.
Including a second goal so cold, it silenced an entire stadium.
Then you have the 2-0 goal, where he's just standing there against Brazil, against Alisson, and he makes his 7th goal.
Bruno Guimaraes misses a penalty that could have changed everything. Pundits are calling it one of the biggest shocks the World Cup has seen in years, and they're not exaggerating.
At first, my initial thought was shock. My initial reaction was surprise. But slowly, as the adrenaline kind of wears off and you can really look at the scenario for what it is, this isn't a shock. This is what Brazil are now.
And here's a detail that gets buried under Haaland's name. Ståle Solbakkens halftime substitutions, bringing on Schjelderup and Bob, get credited afterwards as some of the sharpest in-game coaching decisions of the entire tournament. 2 attacking changes at halftime against Brazil. That's not the move of a manager hoping to survive, that's a manager who came to win. So here's where it leaves us. England is the team of stars and scars, dragging years of near misses behind them. Norway is the team nobody planned for, playing without fear because nobody expected them here in the first place. Somehow, both of them are standing in the exact same quarterfinal. So, what actually happens when these two teams line up against each other? Because this isn't just England versus Norway, it's control versus chaos. 2 completely different ways of winning a football match, and only one of them can work on the night. Start with Tuchel's plan. He wants the ball. He wants Bellingham and Declan Rice dictating the tempo from midfield, pulling the strings they tried to against Mexico. He wants Kane and Bellingham combining in tight spaces inside the box. The same combination that produced 2 goals in 2 minutes at the Azteca. That's the blueprint. Control the middle, feed the front too. Let quality do the rest. But here's the problem with that plan, and it's the same problem that's followed England through the whole tournament. That defense hasn't looked settled once. Not against Mexico, not before that. They've conceded soft goals. They've leaned on individual brilliance from Bellingham and Kane to paper over it. And against the team that actually punishes mistakes in behind, that's not a small crack, that's an open door. Now look at Norway, because their plan is the exact opposite of subtle, direct, vertical, built entirely around getting the ball to Haaland as fast as possible. And get this, according to commentary after the Brazil game, Haaland already has more tournament goals than any Man City legends. That's not a typo. That's just what he's doing right now. And that's exactly why pundits who watched England grind past Mexico came out and said it plainly. Haaland will score against this England backline. Not might, will. They called him a near-guaranteed threat in behind. The kind of forward who doesn't need service, doesn't need chances. He just needs one mistake and he's gone. But Norway isn't just Haaland standing up top waiting for long balls. Martin Ødegaard runs the middle of that team, and he's been described as their conductor, the guy who slows everything down and decides who gets the ball and when. So England's midfield battle isn't only about shutting down the guy who scores the goals, it's about stopping the guy who sets the tempo for the whole team to play at. Win that battle and Norway stutters, lose it, and they'll pass their way through England all night. So, what's the actual plan here? Multiple voices after the Mexico win came to the same conclusion, and it's a bold one. They argued England shouldn't even try to keep a clean sheet.
But it'll be a different type of performance now against Norway. They may have to create, they may have to, overpower Norway in a different type of way.
Try to outscore Norway instead of shutting them out. Because a tight 1-0 defensive performance might not be realistic for this squad, not with the back four they've got right now. And that's the tension sitting right at the center of this whole match. If England chase the game, push numbers forward, leave gaps in behind, Haaland punishes it. He only needs one.
You guys just better hope you don't give me that much space outside of the box. You need to defend me with your life. You need to defend me man to man. But any chance you give me that amount of space with a clear sight on goal, that's cash money. That's money in the bank.
But if England sit deep, try to play it safe, absorb pressure, and hope for a set piece or a moment of magic, Norway's confidence and passing patterns will eventually pick them apart anyway. There's no safe version of this game for England. Every approach carries a hole in it, and Norway knows that. Step back from the tactics for a second, because this match is bigger than one quarterfinal. This is the test of whether England's talent can actually translate into something real, without a manager falling back on parking the bus the second things get difficult. Tuchel's already shown he won't sit 10 men behind the ball. Now we find out if that approach can survive 90 minutes against a team built to punish exactly that kind of football. For England, this pressure isn't new. It's just louder now. Decades of near misses, a golden generation of players who won't keep getting the tag without ever quite finishing the job, and a manager who wasn't brought in to get respectably far, he was brought in to win the whole thing. Nothing less counts as success from here. For Norway, the pressure worked completely differently, because there isn't really any pressure at all, just pure disbelief. A nation that hadn't been to a World Cup in almost 30 years is already partying in the streets of Oslo after Brazil, and somehow they're not satisfied with that. They're already dreaming about a final. Norwegian pundits came out after the Brazil win and said they wouldn't take a backward step against England. And that's not underdog talk, that's a team that genuinely believes it belongs here. And underneath all of that sits two players carrying their own personal weight into this game. Bellingham is chasing the kind of moment that defines an international career, the goal or the night that gets talked about for years. Haaland is chasing something almost as big, a tournament that already has him level with Mbappe and Messi on the goal charts at a World Cup nobody thought Norway would even qualify for.
The day that we look at Erling Haaland as a player, that we don't have to wait one day to see where he will retire in the history books. Right here, right now, we are watching one of the greatest to ever do it at the absolute peak of his powers.
And whoever wins this doesn't just move on quietly, they walk straight into a semi-final against one of the tournament favorites. So this result shapes a lot more than one round of the bracket. This is a team trying to end 50 years of hurt, colliding with a team trying to write history for the very first time. Only one of them gets to keep dreaming after the final whistle. One team ends decades of waiting, the other keeps a fairy tale alive. After this whistle blows, only one dream survives. If you want more World Cup breakdowns like this, get subscribed. It genuinely helps the channel. Drop your score prediction in the comments before kickoff. Let's see who actually calls this one.